And tonight we're going to dive into detox. It's on everybody's mind. Most people have gone through kind of a, we'll say a modified, if you're following No Grain, No Pain, you've gone through a modification over the holidays. Maybe you've deviated a little. Maybe you drank a little bit more alcohol, slept a little bit, not enough. Maybe you didn't exercise as much. Maybe the colder weather's got you indoors and not getting sunshine. Whatever it is, we're going to talk about the ultimate detox strategy for 2022 so that you can fulfill any health resolutions that you have, been trying to prioritize for the new year. A lot of folks right now are talking about the detox, and so we'll start off with talking a little bit about detoxification and why you don't just want to do a detox. Most people that jump into detoxification, they're doing all the wrong things. They're taking supplements in an effort to detoxify themselves without actually changing their behavior, which is equivalent to it's equivalent to swimming in poison, but eating organic food while you're swimming in poison. You're not really going to change the fact that you're swimming in poison, and organic food and supplements are not going to fix that poison that you're surrounding yourself by. So we're going to dive into the proper way to do a detox as we go into the new year, and we're going to talk about the No Grain, No Pain strategy. So if you're new to the show and you haven't yet read No Grain, No Pain, haven't applied the phase 1 and phase 2 diets, what we're doing is a No Grain, No Pain challenge. So this is our challenge to our viewership. It's time to embark upon a very strict and rigid 30-day no grain, no pain, phase 1, phase 2 detoxification as you start your new year to set your health up for great things as we go into 2022. Now, that being said, we're going to talk about some of the rules. If you don't have a copy of the book, you can check one out at your library. You can pick one up on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any other major book carrier. And I encourage you to get a copy if you don't already have one. But we're going to be talking about this and laying down some of the ground rules. So the 30-day challenge, and we're actually going to ask you to record your results. So again, if you have the book, there is a quiz in the book. There's a quiz that asks you to answer certain questions. And what we're asking you to do is fill that section out so you have a before. If you're trying to lose weight, take a before picture. We want you to hang on to these because we're going to have a big winner after this contest, and we're going to be giving away lots of awesome free prizes to the people that make the most life-changing transformation. So again, I'm asking you to fill out that questionnaire in the book as well as a starting point, as well as take a picture and then write down your symptoms, write down the things that you're struggling with the most today. Right? And that way, as you go through this process of the 30-day transformation, you can write down or remember what's changed, and you can do a comparative. And so the people that have the biggest change are the people that we're going to pick for the winners of the No Grain, No Pain 30-day challenge. So let's dive in to give you guys some of the ground rules. Okay, now one of the best ways to start off a detoxification protocol, in my opinion, this is, if you're going to do a detox, right, it's a vitamin C flush. A vitamin C flush is, very simply put, it's when you use higher doses of vitamin C to perform a bowel cleanse. What we're really trying to do is clean out the bowels on the first day of the No Grain, No Pain 30-day challenge to kind of give you a reset, right? So how do you do a vitamin C flush? Now, the first thing you have to understand, if you're in decent health, there we go. Okay, so if you're in good health, you don't need as much vitamin C to do a flush as you do if you would call yourself poor health, right? So we'll give you kind of two options here, and you can kind of pick where you're at. So if you're in relatively good health, you're going to take 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of Detox C Powder. It's important that you use the right kind of vitamin C. Most vitamin Cs are derived from corn, GMO corn, and corn-based products. So you want to get something that's not that. Detox C is what I recommend. 1 to 1.5 teaspoons every 15 minutes until you have a flush. This is bowel movement. So you're going to begin, you're cleansing out your bowel, so you're going to have diarrhea. This is how you do this. So you start this first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. You don't want to eat breakfast and then try to do a flush, because you're just going to agitate your stomach by pushing everything you just ate right through you. So this is done best on an empty stomach. Okay, and it's also smartest to plan the day around the flush. Don't plan the flush around your day. I've had people actually that came to see me in my clinic not listen to this part when we have them do a flush and end up going to work. Trying to go to work on a day where you're trying to do a flush is a bad idea. You find yourself running back and forth to the bathroom, and you won't be happy with that outcome if should something dire happen. So anyway, plan the day around the flush. For most people, to flush the bowels at this level, right? Okay, so let's put the poor health. So if you're in poor health, it's 2 teaspoons every 15 minutes. Until you have a flush. So 2 teaspoons. Now, what do you mix this in? You mix it in water. Don't try to mix it in juice or beverages. You mix it in water. So you're going to use water. You're going to use about 3 ounces of water with each dose. So if you're using the 1.5 teaspoon, mix that in 3 ounces of water and drink it. If you're using the 2 teaspoons, mix that in 3 ounces of water and drink it. Again, it's every 15 minutes until you have the flush. This is going to clean out your bowels. It's also going to saturate you with vitamin C. Any of you that are out there that are worried about the Omicron stuff that's floating around, it's also good for your immune system. Vitamin C is fantastic for your immune system. It's one of the things I have people do is high-dose vitamin C at the first sign of a cold or a flu to really give the immune system a greater degree of power to fight. But this is a great way to start this whole thing off because you're going to cleanse out your bowel. If you're constipated, if you run constipated, this is going to cleanse you out very effectively so that then you can begin the process of no grain, no pain. So let's talk about no grain, no pain and the protocol kind of general rules that you're going to want to follow. Now, again, I'm going to summarize a lot of these rules for you, but you can have the book as a reference to go back to, if you haven't read it. Maybe you're on a budget, check it out at your library. Otherwise, get a copy. It's going to be invaluable to your journey. So some of the general rules on day 1 to day 15, okay, this is kind of the general rule of food, right? If it's not organic, avoid it. Make it organic. You want to eat as much organic. And so this is like your produce, your vegetables, things of that nature. The more you can get it to be organic, the better off you're going to be because you're not repoisoning yourself with pesticides. Now, if it's meat, it should be grass-fed, free range. If it's things like eggs or chicken, again, pasture-raised, free range. You want the animal to have a habitat that most closely resembles the natural habitat for the animal. If these animals are, farm mass-produced, farm-based animals that are being pumped full of GMO grains and penned up in tight quarters where they get very little sunshine and very little exercise, that's not healthy meat. That's not healthy food. So again, when it comes to your meats, free-range, organic, grass-fed. When it comes to your fruits and vegetables and nuts, you want those to be organic. You want to avoid processed and packaged food. There are very few examples to this or exceptions to this rule, but kind of the general rule you want to follow when you're trying to evaluate a food label is if you can't pronounce the term, if you look at the ingredient list on a food label and you can't pronounce the word without a chemistry degree, like you got to go to school to learn how to pronounce those words, that means it's not real food. That means it's a food additive, a food preservative, or something in it that isn't necessarily good for you, and you don't want to take that risk. So avoid processed and packaging food of items where you can't pronounce the words. Generally speaking, if something is processed or packaged, you're looking for simple, easy to read, and understandable ingredients, things that you know what they are. So if you see something like almond flour, you know it's almond flour. It's ground up almonds. That's an acceptable item that you could use in a package, but if it's you find sodium benzoate or again, other long tail words that you can't quite pronounce, that is your key to avoid it. So that's kind of step 1. Those are general common sense rules. Step 2 is eat whole organic. As I mentioned before, this is, no matter what you're choosing, you want to try to eat foods that are not contaminated with chemicals. And this is how we do that. We select organic. Now, some of you may have your own gardens and may grow some of your own food. That's even better. But again, eating whole food versus packaged or processed food, restaurant food, or eating out. Matter of fact, in the No Grain, No Pain Challenge, really deter you from wanting to eat out during this challenge. Now, here are some of the more specific rules for days 1 to 15. Remember, the diet comes in 2 phases. You've got phase 1, which is day 1 to 15, and then you've got phase 2, which is day 16 to day 30. So in phase 1, day 1 to 15, you avoid all grains, not some grains, not most grains, not kind of grains. Sometimes when you want to eat them. You avoid all grains. You also avoid all pseudo cereals or pseudo grains. What are those? What are the pseudo grains? Amaranth, buckwheat, and quinoa are the 3 pseudo grains that you're going to want to avoid. So if you're not familiar with that, I was actually, having a conversation with somebody in our forum earlier today, because somebody was recommending specifically buckwheat. We don't want to do that. We want to avoid all of these things. These are eliminated in phase 1 of No Grain, No Pain. Number 2, meat from grain and soy-fed beef and other animals, as well as caged poultry raised on grain and soy. We want to avoid those things. So again, what are we saying? We want meats that are grass-fed, free-range, organic, that are not just being pumped full of genetically modified corn, soy, wheat, and other grains. We want to avoid all farm-raised fish and shellfish. You're going to see this key word here with farm-raised stuff in the seafood department. A lot of times you'll see this. This is a buzz marketing word. You'll see the word sustainable. And they've made sustainable sound like it's healthy. But the term sustainable when it comes to seafood, it really, what that means is it's a sustainable farming operation for the farmer, but not necessarily a food that's sustainable to your health. And you've got to remember that. You don't want farm-raised fish and shellfish. This stuff is nasty. It's poison. It's full of pollutants and other garbage. A lot of times they inject the fish. Like, for example, they inject the salmon with a pink dye. The farm-raised salmon, otherwise it wouldn't be pink at all. It would be white because it doesn't contain the rich, nutrient-dense ingredients to allow it to take on that pink hue. So farm-raised fish and shellfish, the term sustainable, avoid that. You want to look for wild caught. If you don't see that term, don't eat it. You're also going to avoid all dairy products, including fermented dairy. I get this a lot. People say, what about yogurt? Or what about kefir, right? Avoid those. We're avoiding all dairy and dairy derivatives. And a lot of people, especially in the supplement industry, are going to try to gravitate toward colostrum products. And I recommend avoiding these. Again, this is no grain, no pain. We want to avoid even those products. If you want something like a colostrum for immune support, we make a non-dairy immune support called Immune Shield, which is an antibody-rich protein powder that is not derived from dairy or colostrum, so that you can use instead if you would like to use something similar as a supplement. You're also going to avoid all processed and GMO foods, including so-called gluten-free food products and any other artificial ingredients. So again, what I was talking about earlier with food label reading, we're going to avoid all soy, including soy products. That includes fermented things like fermented miso or tofu, or some of the more common, and then soy sauce, which again, most soy sauces are number 1 ingredient, and most soy sauce is wheat anyway, so we're going to avoid that as well. And we're going to avoid all manufactured sugars. Now, this is not natural sugars, this is manufactured sugars. Natural sugars naturally derived from natural foods that are whole foods are okay. So if you're going to eat some fruit, that's an example of where natural sugars can come from. And then all artificial sweeteners. These are out. These things are toxic. I've done entire shows on artificial sweeteners being toxic, and you want to avoid those. So this is your list, your kind of basic rules, if you will, or basic breakdown of what you're going to eliminate in the first 15 days. So this is days 1 through 15. This is where we start. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.